So I'm gonna host a session, kind of talk about some QuantAnalyzer, and we'll just kind of talk about some other things. Matt broke his collarbone, so he's not able to really say work a computer or say host too well. So we'll just try to keep it analyzed on this new tool that was shared. I forget by who, but it might be this. Let me look, by Booker. So just kind of share what I've done with it and how I've been using it to kind of strategize the next, account. Everybody can kind of see my screen. You can see MT5 over here. This is another MT5. Let me put this guy down. So this is the paper account, and then some QuantAnalyzer. This is a free download just from the link, but if you just search for it, QuantAnalyzer, it's by Strategy Quant. They have different versions. I think they have like 4 different let's say programs. Analyzer. So this is one of them. But if you so this is what I did, right? Just went to the free version, typed in an email. They send you a code. The code is just a confirmation code so that you can only install it per instance on a computer. So I have one on my Microsoft Surface Pro, and then I also have one just on my big desktop, just so I could run 2 different versions. But you just basically download that. Pretty simple. And you can just have this big screen. Now from, let's say, MT5, you'll run your settings. And what I did over the last 2 weeks was I took 5 different bots, just ran them over Tesla and NVIDIA to see which ones would perform if I took a $500 risk for a $50,000 account and ran $100 risk on each bot. But maybe let's say 4 bots just for some buffer room. And what would that strategy be? So I wanted to load, let's say, 8 or even more strategies at once, and then look at how each strategy played into each own, for, let's say, being similar, but also for how much risk and where the strategy could be playing. It's kind of like dicing up one day. How many times can you throw all these bots or all these ninjas, at this one particular day, because each day is unique in its own right, and then try to capture as much as you could, in small chunks type of thing. So again, I took 4 different strategies from the larger subset and ended up with a Orb and NR7 for NVIDIA and Tesla. And it just panned out that I had basically 2 bots running per day, so a $200 risk per day as open risk. But there was also, in a sense, they could trade, for an NR7, they would trade maybe twice per day versus Orb might be once. So it might be up to $300 of open risk with this strategy. So once you run, let's say, a strategy and you get your inputs and your back test, right? And this will be a different back test than what was loaded here. But you go to your back test and you look at what you like. If you like the percentage of wins, you like the drawdown, you like the reward. You right click, go to report, and save it as an HTML. Now, if you've read some of the other documents in the Google Drive, we have different ways to label reports. So you can see different ways. And if this is small, let me know. I should have asked that up front, but I like small text so I can see different windows. But you label it as a certain, let's say, profit, drawdown, bot name and version, plus the ticker that you're using on, and then maybe a time frame. So what I've been lately doing is optimizing each day for each ticker over a certain run, and then try to load different strategies and see how they correlate and uncorrelate to each other. So you save it as an HTML file, and I'll go to some of these so you can see what that file actually looks like if you were to open it. Possibly. So this is an Amazon orb that I did 3 days ago. Or not. It doesn't like that one. My bad. So here is one I did on PayPal. So 1 minute, just running on Tuesdays. But this is basically your HTML file that you would be using as your input into Quant. And just looking at different things. So some of it is somewhat similar. How much drawdown you'll see, how much, your balance and your win percentage, your drawdown itself. One thing I did notice that MT5 doesn't necessarily show on the screen is what Matt has talked about in many classes. Is kind of like your multiplication factor. How much of your risk is to your actual net reward? Is it a 4 time? Is it a 5? Or is it more like a 2? So it's a little easier to see that when you're into Quant itself. So you open QuantAnalyzer, and this is the home page up in the top left. And so basically you go and you load the report. Now you go into where your reports are, and you select your HTML files, and you load them. So if I went to what we were doing is orb on NVIDIA for P16. And this guy, you're doing Monday and Thursday, I believe. So you click it. Now you could load it into portfolio. Portfolio is this tab on the very bottom left. Portfolio is where you can take simple strategies that's in the top left, what we're loading into, or this single result. You can take different bots and basically load them into one strategy, right? So this is how you can look at multiple instances, multiple variations of one bot or maybe one ticker over things, and you can kind of see where they, again, overlay. So you basically load as a single result, hit continue. And when you do that, you can also go back to that menu and load, and you can select multiple reports. And you can just go and load all of them if you want. So you can kind of batch build, you could say, if you want to start loading all your HTML files, get those into a folder, and then start loading them into your Quant and just upload type of thing. But it's very easy to unload and analyze and do different things. If you want to delete, you basically just select what you want to delete, check it, and delete. If you now click the very top left corner, it basically takes all of them into one selection, and that's where you can say create portfolio. And you can kind of see over here where I have portfolio. If I create another one, it'll just say portfolio as, with a parentheses with a 1. So I'll say this is a 4 bot because that's what I kind of uploaded earlier. So you can just come back and say create portfolio, and now you have this new portfolio down here. So you could create different, you could have, let's say, 10 or 20 different strategies in here and select different ones, and then compare those strategies and portfolios over here. Going back, now you can kind of see what I was talking about earlier, where this kind of profit factor and this return on ratio is more what I was looking at is the 25.9 is how can you have a 4 or 5x, and why is this maybe a 25? Why is this much higher? But then you start looking at your drawdowns and your profit. You can start looking at average monthly runs.
Hey,
So
Jonathan,
that's just,
is
yep,
there a way you can maximize that screen?
I
yes.
can't see a thing.
To your point, let me go back. You guys can't see the small text, huh?
Can't really see much of anything.
Let me go back and go to, is that better? Much better. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I still have to squint to see that, but yeah, I can see it.
That's great. Yeah.
That's good. That's
Oh,
good.
you guys should have said something earlier. Okay, or I'll remember that. So again, here's where you have all your strategies. And if you guys want, I can maybe go up a little more. So going back, here's your home, right? But this is where you analyze. So you load a report. You can go back, not the XML files, but you want your HTML files. You can come back and you can select 3, 4, you can load 20, however many you would like. Right? And it'll come back as a single result. You just keep selecting that. I've tried to do this where you use all of them for the same strategy. You still have to go and select continue and hit all of them. But you can see how now they've loaded on the very bottom. And now you can go and select any different one you want, create a portfolio, and look at that portfolio, see if the percentage of wins, the profit factor, different things. To work the navigation through this, let's say, platform, you have to hit enter when you select one of these strategies. So if you select on portfolio 1, you have to hit enter on your keyboard and kind of just select through it. It's not as intuitive because sometimes if you double click, you're renaming it, and then you still have to hit enter to exit the renaming. So just work with the keyboard, but you can look at different portfolios now of, is your return on risk really well? Is your drawdown, how much is your drawdown? How much is your daily average? Because we're running 3 different bots. So when you go back to the list of trades up at the top, then you can kind of see, let me see if I gotta move this little window real quick.
Jonathan, I'm probably missing something here, but
Sure.
what's the point of this? I guess if I don't get that, I can't follow along with what you, well, I couldn't see either.
So this is one way of how you, let's say you have one account. How do you run 5 or even more than 2 bots at one time? And this is probably more visuals. Each one of the lower lines, the red, orange, and green, are 3 different bots on one strategy, right, or one account. And maybe they run better on 2 days, maybe they run better on 1 day, or maybe you just have a different analysis of what you want to do. So you start looking at, are they running the same type of trend? Are they both losing at the same time? You can see, I mean, and maybe this is where a replay or I can show a different way, show screenshots of this, but we have a orb on an NVIDIA that was winning really well from June, all the way through July. So 1 month that helped pull the account up, while, we have an orb on Tesla was almost flat.
So it's a dark blue line, the combined result?
Correct. There's a little legend at the bottom of the graph, and each color, sometimes it's hard to see some of the colors, but yes, the bigger, fatter blue line is the portfolio overall. And so you can go through and now select. If you look at the top left, it tells you the portfolio name or what you're looking at. We look at the 4 bot. which is what I was sent a picture of. It's just bigger. So I had it down as $100 just to have more fidelity in looking at this. But you can kind of just look at different analogies, different strategies, and see if they're both losing, if they're both winning, how you can maybe fill a gap in a strategy if you want to run bots 24/7. It may help to understand trend analysis also if a bot is running at a certain win percentage and below that. Another thing going in through some of these screens is when you go to a portfolio correlation is, are they really running at the same, frequency? Are they going to be losing at the same time type of thing? Are they seeing the same thing? And you can look at it in a day, hour time frame. You can look at it over a weekly or even a monthly time frame. Right, getting into this 0.82, we can see that maybe an NR7 with Tesla and an NR7 with NVIDIA, right, may have some high correlation that maybe you don't want that. Maybe they would be, in a sense, following the same type of trend and maybe chopping around and losing a lot, right? So it's looking at how you can quickly analyze different bots, different strategies, again, going back over to an equity chart and your drawdown of how fast and what that looks like over a larger time frame or even a shorter time.
All right, I'm gonna come forward. Gang and Emma, please return back to the theater.
So you could also go in and look at what I showed also the Monte Carlo analysis, which kind of is like a stress test of everything. And you can go through and run it and kind of see where your max drawdown is for these 4 bots. So if we're looking at 6,000, right, for a $50,000 account, right? No, that's 100,000. So you're looking at like smaller than that. But at this, let's say 100,000, it'd be 6. You're trying to see where is your really your threshold of stability and, let's say, longevity. Some of these will be, let's say, much lower at a 50 or 60% confidence level, which means it's just not going to really survive. There's going to be a lot of drawdowns. Having it in the 90s type of thing gives you a little bit more confidence that maybe this combination of bots and strategies helps, you get there or survive different turbulent times. So we can kind of go through and say run it on a portfolio with the 3 that we selected earlier, right? From that we uploaded and then just took some random 3. You can kind of see now even here that it's still up at the 95% compared to the 4 bot was in the same range, but I think more at like 6,000. So it's just something of how do you kind of look at these, strategies in a different way, but not have to always compute yourself. You can have this analyzer do it for you. You can go to a what if analysis. You can actually start computing different time frames if you wanted to. You can have it create a what if, and then it's down at this portfolio level. And this would give you a certain way of, loading a different bot analysis if you wanted to, if you didn't want to go through and analyze yourself. So it's a different tool, again, of how you can strategize and compute all the different variables for a strategy. I'm still learning about this tool quite a lot. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier, was how you can compare different results. I'd have to start testing this with different people to see how you do that. What does that really mean? Even this portfolio master, I'm assuming it takes a lot of these portfolios, you load them in and then see as a bigger time frame, as a bigger data set of, maybe this is all your sectors. Maybe you have a tech sector and stuff, but I still have to analyze this aspect of it. But this is, again, all free. It seems to be quite useful just as, a free tool. And same with this money management simulator. When you run it, you always get those if you want to do a pro version, but truthfully, I think there's enough here to learn how to just exercise the free version before you even start paying for this. But again, it tells you what your risk is, your fixed amount. You can load and do some different settings in here to see different charts just to run if you want to run a different risk. And then again, how you get there. So this is kind of like an overview of everything for this. I've basically been running it on the Monte Carlo to see what would be my, let's say, standard deviation. How far am I off from a really high confidence that this can work and work in the way I'd like it to? Because it doesn't necessarily run, what it thinks or what, you may intend. You still have to interpret the data. Going back to the overview, when you do a portfolio correlation, you can click on any one of these and actually see the actual trades that it took during that time frame to see maybe when it was really bad or maybe when it was really good. So just something to consider, just if you wanted to look at any anomalies within this and how you got there. So just a different way, again, just to look at just your analysis of maybe 4 different bots or multiple bots at once. This kind of gives you your, let's say, an overview of profit and loss, just some other graphs of, what it would look like. I think the equity chart is really nice. What I tried to, let's see if I can zoom in. And forgive me because I'm not so strategic on this platform yet. But what I was kind of saying was maybe in this range where all 4 bots almost went flat is maybe something that you look at. If that was much larger over 1 month or 2 months, maybe that's something to look at of how do you change those bots or change it, to turn it off because maybe it's breaking away from its trend of what it has been doing for the past several weeks. And again, how do you avoid such large drawdowns? How do you help increase your portfolio and then maybe swap out one of these bots? Maybe, again, you go back and you change and choose something else. Maybe you just Amazon and AMD because you're doing just Tuesdays and Thursdays. Create that portfolio and you look at that.
Hey, Jonathan, how do you know which line represents which bot when you're looking at that?
On this equity chart?
Yeah.
Are you able to see down at the legend?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see that there. Great.
Yep. So some of those lines are somewhat hard when you put, let's say, a lot of bots in there or a lot of data. So sometimes you might want to just try 2 or 3 at a time. But yeah, it does say for a certain green color what that is. Now, this is where your nomenclature gets kind of confusing of, you have to read into your name of, well, this is the orb version of Amazon, and this is the orb on AMD. So running on an M2, 2-minute on Amazon, and an M15 or 15-minute on AMD. The blue line would be the portfolio. So you can see basically in July how they both, started to follow each other. They both started losing each other. We're back in.
Where's the legend? I don't see a legend there.
Right below the dates on the bottom of the graph. There you go.
Yeah, oh, there you go. Yeah. You see that?
Oh, okay. I was looking further down.
Down in here? Let's see if I can work
I don't
this
know what
one.
you're looking at now.
And so, Jonathan, could you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, this is Jim. So if I'm running a strategy on each day of the week, one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, and then I notice that every one of those has like a 1% drawdown, and I put them all in here, all 5 of them in there. So where do I see, or how can I see the overall drawdown?
So that's where if this goes up any higher.
I think you went over it before, but I think I might have.
Correct. So you'll have your simple strategies over in the bottom left,
Okay, right.
right? So then you go and you load them up, right? So you load whatever strategies you want, whether it's an orb,
Right.
right? Whether it's a 10 EMA, snapback, gap plot, right? You
Right.
load up whatever your HTML file is that you found.
Right.
Select the ones that you really want,
Okay.
right? To be in that portfolio.
Exactly. Okay.
Go and create portfolio.
Create portfolio. Okay. And this is what it shows up in this screen up here, right? On the top.
Yep. So I'll go back and I'll delete all these, right? Pretty simple. So go back, you select the strategies that you'd like.
Okay.
My apologies for not checking the chat, guys. So yeah, Mike, sorry, going back. This is all free version, right? So you don't have to buy this. This is just me downloading it and just plugging away. Go back, you select your 4 strategies, create a portfolio, right? So it looks the same, but right, it's just, that's what it creates. If we went back and created another one,
Okay.
right, it just creates a portfolio 1. So
Okay.
you select the one that you want, which will then highlight in the top left underneath the banner, portfolio -1, right? If you hit enter on the keyboard, it goes through the next one that's down below on your list.
Okay.
So now these are the 4 strategies, and you can look at your overall drawdown.
Okay. Excellent. Okay.
It's a little
Thank you.
bit higher. The return on ratio is at 4 or 5, X that Matt has been kind of talking about.
Right.
This is a 26X, which is quite high. So, you want to make sure that this is true. And this is just an easier way, though, that if that is possible and achievable, that's awesome. It's just, what does that really look like? In what area, for how long? When do you start, changing different things?
Sounds good. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yep. And so now one other thing that Booker, I believe, told me in the chat was I couldn't see which view or which bot when you start looking at all these different we start looking at all the columns. So how do you look at and how do you find which bot did what on what day? Right. So over here, you can add different things. I've made a column, or let's say a view called eval. But what he basically just told me was, and it's a simple way, is you click this wrench. It brings up a new menu, and you can basically clone the default. It's an easy way to just keep majority of this in here. So you can clone it. All right, becomes default 3 because I already had another default. Then come down here to your strategy name and just select it over. And now it's at the very back. You can get rid of it if you wanted to, get rid of some of the pips if you don't, look at pips. The sample type, I'm not exactly sure, but it seems to be the same, so I don't necessarily need it at this time. You could look at your common swaps. You can look at any data that you really want to look at in these different columns. So you can see how it's all 0 within the strategy. You can look at it later. I haven't run this with a live account, and in all fairness, I haven't gotten a live account, so still working on how to just analyze long term of kind of building a strategy, then analyzing that strategy. So just building those skills. So you can look at all this other stuff, but so when you go here, you want to make sure you save it, right? So We'll do eval test. All right, you want to make sure it's saved again because we deleted some and we added the strategy name. Come back up here. You can see now that it says eval test. And now over here on the very far right, you can see again that this is where we can look at our file names that are uploaded from our simple strategies down in the bottom left now. So we can see when orb took. Oh, well, orb lost twice in a row, but then NR7, basically made up twice that. And you can just kind of see how does this strategy really look. And going back to our Monte Carlo, and actually, sorry, going back to our correlation, when you run a correlation, you can click on one of these and actually look at what the worst would be, in a sense, for a loss, and see how does that work with, current or live trends. And if you wanted to look at, kind of like standard deviations of your trend analysis, Bollinger Bands, but in a sense with some of your trends, if you wanted to plot that. So that's one way to see, again, going back to what strategy took what, ticker, at what time frame, how long it was in. So you can see it kind of did really well along this whole time frame on the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th. Just kept chugging away. Didn't have to stop for anything. So yeah, it's just a different way to analyze multiple strategies. Again,
Have you deployed any bots after using the analyzer?
excuse me?
Have you deployed any bots based off of this yet?
I'm running a test account right now. With the 4 bots. So I'm running it on this guy where I'm running the NR7 on NVIDIA 4-minute, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and running a NR7 Tesla 5-minute, right, on Tuesday, Friday. So running these 4 strategies basically on a demo 100K account right now, to see what it would do with just $100 risk, just to play that and just to see what happens, see if it will actually match, let's say a 1K risk, and just start correlating different trends. If it works, then it will work a long time, and I should be able to say keep an account going for longer because I'm not taking as much risk, but I'm taking smaller risks of a larger, sum, and just seeing if it's still trending and when do I stop that trend. So yeah, these are what I'm running now in the 100K account just for a test to see, is it really, is it viable, right? Is my hypothesis, is my testing correct? Is my analysis perspective correct on all this? So you guys, strategy quant X for Max, you have to pay for it on the Mac. It's not fun. Oh, wrong, but doesn't. So you guys have to run it through your parallels. Man, that would suck.
We ultimately have to deal with Mediterranean 5 anyway, so it's just one more thing. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
The strategy quant X is a different tool altogether.
Okay. Yeah, and these are the other ones I was looking at that, not sure what these can really do for us. Algo Wizard seems to be one that you can just build your own algos, or like you want to, I guess, to surpass Matt type of thing. I mean, there's enough data just to sift through to make sure one bot works, let alone try to create a bot. And then Quant Data Manager, how you manage all the data, large subsets. But
Hey, Jonathan, which version did you download? The 64-bit or the?
I did the 64-bit, yep, for this SP8, Service Pro 8.
Yeah,
So
and it's the same software, Gene. It just depends on what type of computer you're running it on. That's what that means.
Okay. I'm gonna try that on the parallels.
Does anyone have any other questions? Thank you, Jonathan, for
welcome.
the other last minute. Yeah. Because to me, it seems like the real benefit here, and I've played with this a little bit, but kind of on the struggle bus today with my pain management. But to me, it seems like the real big benefit is for those of you who run multiple bots. This is the combined view of what that looks like with the backtest itself, the drawdowns, the return, kind of the collective view of all of it together with that portfolio tool to look and see how well all the bots combined, how they operate and behave in conjunction. So versus trying to analyze 4 different individual back tests, this kind of merges it all together and shows you some cool stats. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I've been considering that with pairing something with the Gap bot since doesn't take trades every day or every week. Figured having another bot with that at a low risk, just to have some building of the account in those time frames would be great.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions, team? Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, team, again, have an amazing weekend, and we will see you guys all next week. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Thank you, guys.
Sure. Yep.
Thanks,
Have a great
Jonathan.
weekend. We'll see you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Matt.